but far better putting the filler exactly where it needs to go rather than overfilling, sanding back and losing a lot of the shape of the car. If we end up with filler there, then we've done something wrong. How do we plan our filler work at this stage when it's in epoxy? Hey, Lincoln from Melomotive. We're back out at Mick's Custom Restorations with Big Mick. We're going to have a look today over his VL Nitron. He's been doing some pretty handy work on it, and we're going to go over with the splines before we start doing the filler work on this side of it. I've essentially spent the last 18 months travelling the country, seeing hundreds of restoration shops. It's a question I commonly get asked, is how do we plan our filler work at this stage when it's in epoxy? Mick's put the Resto Finish epoxy coat over the top of it. It does have the extra film build, however it's still not enough to start blocking to be able to get everything straight. So in this video we're going to go over analysing the surface with splines and coming up with a plan on how to fix any highs or lows to efficiently get a high quality finish before we put the poly primer over the top. Looking forward to it, Mick?
Oh, thanks, Lee.
Alright, so Mick and Charlie have now scuffed up this side with 120 grit. The whole side's now ready to take filler. Now we don't want to put filler over the whole side, we only want to put filler where it needs to go. That's why we're using the splines. When we see cars that are edge to edge filler, it generally means that we've now overfilled. Some part of the car has to be correct, so we're using those areas to only fill in between. So when it comes to filler, there are a lot of conversations I have. Truth be told, I've worked for General Motors for 16 years in design in Australia, Korea and North America. When we're working on the cars in design, they look amazing. They're clay models, they're sculpted perfectly. When they get to the production line, it's safe to say they're definitely not as good as what the clay models looked. So to the type of restoration that we're doing today, it does require filler to get it to look back like what the designer actually intended. No rolling with the doors, no pressings. We want this car to be flowing through beautifully and everything correct. Okay, so this stage here is one that I see neglected a fair bit when I'm out and about on the road. The next 20 minutes to half an hour that Mick and I are going to spend coming up with a plan will save us hours, if not days, down the track. Getting the surfaces correct can take time, but we need to have a plan. We're going to use the splines. There's 9 different ones, so we're going to be switching between the thicker ones and the thinner, more flexible ones. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a grey lead pencil and we're going to mark out all the work that we need to do, come up with a plan. Wherever the spline's touching, the surface is correct. Wherever it's not, that's where there'll be some lows. Mick's done a great job with the sheet metal work side of things. However, there is always the need for the level of restoration that we're doing here. There is a need for filler to get that final 10%.
Get that spline across. Because would you say that's its own shape?
It's pretty good. I don't think it's as bad as what, I'm only really seeing a bit of a triangle here if I'm using this point here, because it will twist around a little bit there. But here, we're going to end up with this is where we might pull that door out a bit again, just because see here, we're going to end up with Okay, so we've spent about 20 minutes going over this surface. We're going to focus on the main area running through here. We want to get all this right first, then we can do the smaller sections afterwards. We've got some yellow tape here where we believe we can put our hands to do a small fill here to get these two panels running through correctly. Just because see here, so I guess now that we've got this part done, we want to find out where our hands can go next. So if we have a look here, as we're dragging this up, I can see the splines touching here, then it moves along here, and it's touching here, and it touches here. So that spot is correct. If we end up with filler there, then we've done something wrong. So we can put our filler in now, and we can do this drag, and we can put our hand here, knowing that we've got a spot the whole way up that's correct where we don't want filler. And now, like what's happened over here, we only want to fill where the lows are. Now we should be able to use this area to find any low spots through here. So we can see here the reason why we spend all this time checking. By wiping the spline up and down a couple of times, we can see all the points where it's touching the surface. Anything where it's not touching is low. We're talking, 0.2 of a mil, 200 microns that we need to fill, but this has shown us exactly where that filler needs to go. Okay, so we're ready to do our next fill here. We've chosen the number 6 spline, a little bit easier to work with. And we're going to do a drag coming up this way to fill those areas that we pointed out earlier. We'll then move over to the number 8 spline. And we'll be doing a fill here. We'll get a bit more filler in this area. It's a little bit lower through here. But what we're doing, we're trying to rough in this area first, the whole length of the car. Then we can start working on other areas. But we need to get the biggest area right first. So checking with the spline again. We can see with that one drag, we're 90% there. There's a couple of little things we're going to pick up on, but what we were explaining earlier, filler does not need to be here. That's why it's not there. The filler's only going where the spots are low. That's now all flowing through nicely. So as you can see, we've still got a fair bit of work to go, but really with 2 mixes of filler, we're pretty much 90% there from here forward. We'll check back in with Mick again in another video to see how it comes out. Still got a bit of work to go, but far better putting the filler exactly where it needs to go rather than overfilling, sanding back and losing a lot of the shape of the car. Now a lot of the stuff we've spoken about today, this is what we teach at our Melomotive spline and bodyworking courses. We obviously go into a lot more depth, but highly recommend, if you're interested, get in contact with us. Thanks again.